Whenever we talk about the energy transition, the conversation almost always turns to what we're missing, right? We need more money, more tech, more political will. But what if the biggest problem isn't about what we lack, but about what we just can't see? To really get a feel for the stakes here, let's just start with a number: 1.6 billion euros. That's the projected cost of a single 6-hour blackout in Spain. It's a pretty stark reminder that when the grid goes down, our entire economy just grinds to a halt. And the pressure on that grid, it's building to a breaking point. And that really gets us to the heart of the problem. See, our energy grid was built for a much simpler, more predictable world. A world of big, centralized power plants and nice, steady demand. But with renewables popping up everywhere and the push to electrify, well, that old playbook is totally out the window. Our aging infrastructure is now facing a surge in demand it was just never, ever designed for. And if you want to see where this new pressure is coming from, just look at data centers in Europe. Their power demand is on track to more than triple in just 7 years. I mean, this isn't some slow and steady increase. It's an absolute explosion, and it's all driven by how digital our world is becoming. So the conventional response to a problem like this is, of course, to just throw a ton of money at it. We see these absolutely staggering numbers all the time. Trillions of dollars and euros just to keep the lights on and build for what's coming next. And look, that's the macro story we're always told. It's important, for sure, but it's also really incomplete. And this is where the story takes a really interesting turn. Because from a distance, those maps showing all the new renewable projects, they look great. But those maps and those huge numbers we just saw, they're actually hiding a much deeper, way more complicated problem. This quote just hits the nail on the head. A map shows you a little dot for a wind turbine, but it doesn't show you the community that has to live with it, or the local water rights, or the specific welders and electricians needed to build it. All these ground-level realities, that's where the transition actually lives or dies. And in our current models, they're completely invisible. And get this is the paradox. In the US alone, there are 1,300 gigawatts of clean energy projects. That's enough to power the country twice over, just stuck, sitting in a line, waiting to connect to the grid. The projects are ready, the money's there, but they are literally going nowhere. So this leads to the million-dollar question, right? If it's not a lack of projects and it's not a lack of investment, what is actually stopping us? What's the real bottleneck that's holding this entire transition hostage? And here's the answer, and it's a big one. The core issue isn't really technical or financial, at least not in the way we usually think about it. It's a problem of geometry, a problem of how all the different pieces of the puzzle fail to see each other, and because of that, they fail to connect. Okay, so once you start thinking that way, it lets you see something totally new. The capital we need is actually already here. It's not missing. It's just stranded, hiding in plain sight, locked away in all these disconnected systems. Now, you've probably heard the term stranded assets, like an old coal plant that's basically worthless now. But that's not what we're talking about here. This is different. We're talking about stranded capital. That's money and commitments for things like water permits or community benefit agreements or workforce training that are already happening, but they're totally disconnected from the energy project itself. Let's make this real. Picture a huge new data center in Virginia. Everyone sees the massive power purchase agreement. That's on one ledger, plain as day. But on completely separate, totally invisible ledgers are all of its other commitments. Its obligations for water usage, its promises to the local community, its workforce needs. These are all forms of capital, but to the grid planners, they might as well not exist. So how do we fix this? The solution is to build a system that can finally see all these different pieces at the same time. A system that makes the invisible visible. And this is the whole idea behind what's called the federated grid. So try to think of this federation model less like some top-down command center and more like a totally transparent marketplace. It's a system where every single piece, a power plant, a local town, a watershed, can basically broadcast its own needs and its own resources to the entire network, all under a common set of rules. This is a pretty fundamental shift in perspective. First, you stop looking at things from 30,000 feet and you start seeing from the grid point up. Then you make all those hidden obligations, the water, the community stuff, visible. And finally, you connect them. You turn a bottleneck into a completed circuit where capital can actually flow to meet the needs. Look at how this could play out in a place like California. Right now, utilities spend billions on wildfire mitigation. At the very same time, the communities living along those power lines are struggling to fund basic services. With a federated view, the capital that's already being spent on fire prevention could also be used to fund those community needs. You're solving two huge problems with one stream of investment. And that brings us to the final, and I think most powerful, idea here. This whole new geometry of the grid, it just completely dissolves the false choices that have paralyzed the energy debate for years. We hear this one all the time. We're constantly told we have to pick one. Do you want a grid that's reliable, or do you want a grid that's affordable? Sorry, you can't have both. But this new model shows us that's just not true. It's a false choice. By making all that stranded capital visible, we can actually build a grid that is both reliable and affordable. And we see the exact same false choice when it comes to the economy, right? You have to pick economic growth or sustainability. But by seeing the whole picture, the community, the watershed, the workforce, we can achieve growth and sustainability. It's not a trade-off, it's a synergy. And this is the ultimate reframing. Those trillions of dollars we talked about at the beginning, they stop looking like this terrifying cost that we have to bear. Instead, they become the capital that actually completes the circuit, flowing to every community and solving multiple problems all along the way. So the final question really isn't about whether we can build enough, it's about whether we can see enough. Can we finally build systems with the vision to see all the capital that's already in motion and with the geometry to finally connect it?